Okay, we're recording now. Hello, Xandria.
Hi, Tamia.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for coming in. Talking with me
Of course.
this afternoon. I've been doing a lot of stuff, painting, working during my free time, thinking about physics because I'm a nerd. But I've started this painting series, and I'll be debuting. By the time this video comes up, it will already be out. But I'm working on my second piece, which was related to hair. That a blog piece that I did on like the physics of hair and like the elasticity and stuff like that. So, but a lot of this idea of like, okay, I'm placing myself in like these physics contexts and I'm seeing the connections. How are other people within my field also feeling in terms of when they are navigating between their own disciplines? I'm talking to mostly the people who I'm talking to are people of color, which is great because those are the people who I know and are doing this type of work. I wanted to know, for you, what do you think it means to be seen in physics, and just like what does being seen in physics mean to you, and what does being seen in art mean to you, and like is there a difference between being seen in physics than there is in performance? And I say performance and art, I use it interchangeably because a lot of the times a lot of us do performing arts, but for you, what does it mean to be seen in physics and in that performance art or art space, and if there's a difference in terms of the two mediums. Pretty much.
So I mostly do music. I always wanted to get into like painting and drawing, and then I just didn't, like in middle school, because you could only choose one. And I was like, I almost switched to art one year, and I was like, nah, I'll stick with cello and I'll do art later. And so yes, I do music, and so most of my art is performative. In that, when you play cello, either semi-professionally or if you're an amateur. So yeah, if you are like a full professional, you're doing it for people, kind of. And so like, I was really lucky to be brought up in that culture where your music is meant to be shared with others. Like I didn't start playing like solo cello until I got to college, because it was like I couldn't take private lessons when I was young because it's expensive and it takes up time, and I had to work and I was in school and all that jazz. So I never like performed by myself until I was 18. Like everything before then was always in a group. It was always collaborative. You were always working together. And like you had somebody guiding you, of course. You had your orchestra director guiding you. But you also had like your section leaders, like the main person who like sits in the front row and like helps you figure things out. But it was always just like you were never alone. And even like when performing solo music, you're technically not alone. Like you have a pianist, but like you've been working on this with your teacher, and you've been working on it with yourself and with others. And so it's never been like performing and being seen in music. My main medium has always just been like collaborative. I've always just been like one of a group, and that group together collectively was working for the betterment of each other. And so that's always been really, really fantastic. And like that culture that I was able to grow up in, because I didn't grow up, like I liked science and I loved science. Like I wasn't I guess I was just like a science kid. But like my main focus growing up and like my main extracurricular was always orchestra and was always music. Like I guess my family's also really musical. I mean, my mom did band when she was in high school, and she made all of us do strings when we were growing up because it was available in 5th grade instead of 6th grade. I'm the only one who stuck with it afterwards, but like my older sister took like singing lessons, like, and we do karaoke, and my sisters are dancers and cheerleaders, so all of us are just like in like these big group performances, and like we would do karaoke with each other. So just like being seen, like I was like in a group of 4, because I have 3 sisters in a group of 4. and my mom. It was like being seen like as an individual was just like being seen as a group. And I always felt that emulated in music, like being seen as an individual, you were always like working collectively towards the group. Um, and so like going into like a pure science space, so I did music education for 2 years at a university, and I switched universities and I did physics. I was like, music education is real hard. I'm gonna do physics, so that's easier. Which sounds like it is easier in a way. It's a lot less objective or subjective. I forget.
Yeah.
Where like like the parts of the brain that it turns on are extremely different, and so it is difficult in that way. Like it's not as physically difficult. Like sometimes playing cello, you're sitting there for hours, your hands start cramping, your body starts hurting if you're not sitting in the right way. So like it has its own difficulties, but like it is also easier than like a performance degree. Also, if you're taking 4 classes and you're taking 12 hours, you're taking 4 classes. In music, if you're taking 12 hours, you're probably taking 7 classes and like a couple of 0-hour classes. And so like, and like it's all the same amount of work. It's just a 1 hour on your credit sheet. It's ridiculous. And like the maximum or like the minimum amount of like required credits is higher than like a normal, a traditional degree. It's hard. It's hard.
Wow.
But, okay.
So I think you were talking about your experience in just like being seen artistically as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just saying that that's really interesting that it seemed more strenuous to be in that you're doing music for you, or not necessarily strenuous, but like it was a lot more workload than it was compared to physics. And I don't know, I guess for me it's quite been the opposite with theater, but I mean, also too, like I understand theater, you have to use your physical body and also sometimes do some strenuous movements on stage and whatnot. But yeah, it's just been and for me it's been very like individualistic rather than collaborative. And yeah, I just found that very interesting. I had another question for you in regards to like why does it bother you that when you're musically you are seen collaboratively or collectively in a group rather than individually? Yeah, so that was really my question.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think so. I did take a sip. So I think like the strenuous part came from just like the environment that I was in. Like the university wasn't a good fit. My orchestra director, I loved her. My private teachers, I loved them, but just like just the university as a whole and the people who were there, like I just didn't mesh with. So I think that was part of like the strenuous part of it. And like I don't know, 'cause I do like being seen individually. I'm a middle child. I'm 2 of 4. Like I had a lot of trouble growing up. I was a troublemaker. And I did forensics. I did debate. And so I did debate in high school, and I did like the little acting part of debate, which I loved so much. And so I did get like that individual like look and like that individual feel from that. So I forgot what your question was.
Oh yeah, I was just
Okay.
like, it's okay.
I was like, oh no.
I guess yeah. Have you liked that experience of? I was asking if you've liked the experience of being collectively seen musically, than individualistically. But you answered that question already. But until now, I guess the question now is like, is there for you in physics? Is there a difference between that being seen within that musical art space than in physics now, where you're doing like PR, physics education research? For those who don't know what PR is, it's a real exclusive group, but not really.
I know, we're just like, come in.
Yeah. But yeah, like how has that? Is it different? Is it the same? Do you? Yeah, how are you negotiating all of those interest areas?
Yeah. Let me see. That's a good question. I know. Hey, Bobby, that's just somebody. Okay, I got you a different treat that you want. Do you want this? Okay, yeah, he saw it. Okay, now he's gonna go off. But it was really, that negotiation was really different. I had to do it like in a different way. 'Cause I didn't know. I started physics wanting to do astro, because we all want to do astro, right? I was just like, space is dope. I love Star Trek. Star Trek is dope. Like, let's do some space physics. And because I was just like, I'm not going to be an educator. I'm not going to be a teacher. Like, I think it's fun, but I'm just not going to do it. I tried really hard to not be a teacher. But like the negotiation was really different, because the way that our program is set up at Texas State is a lot of like group learning. It's a lot of active learning or active group learning, and collaboration. But like collaboration in physics is very different than collaboration in music, in that. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences, and it's mostly just like the goal that you're working towards. Like finding that goal was really important for me to stay inside of the field, I think, because like traditionally physics is very individualistic. It's very much, you're going to do what you do, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and like it doesn't matter what you do as long as I'm doing what I got to do. And so there were times when that did happen, and that was very strange to me, because I was just like, why are we not working together? Like, why are we not like doing this? Also, I didn't want to, because they were kind of spooky. But a lot of engineers in our intro physics classes, you don't like collaboration, don't like to listen, and I was like, okay, fine, that's fine. But like like my goal in music was always to just like do my best with the skills that I was given and that I have trained in, to bring like a little bit of just like magic in the world, almost like a little bit of joy. When I play music and when I teach music, it's always very, very joyful for me. It's like I still teach and I still play. Even now, I still took private lessons throughout my undergrad at Texas State while I was doing my physics degree. So I still got to perform. I still got to do all of that really cool stuff. I wasn't in an orchestra because their orchestra was very intense, and it would have been so much fun. But I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh, gosh, I love orchestra. They put some cool music. I did choir for a semester, and that was really fun, because I don't usually sing, and I love singing. But yeah, but like that goal of just like bringing magic and just like bringing joy to yourself and to others, and just like being able to share your gifts and your interests with people is really what makes me so like invested in doing music. And so when I first started out doing physics, like I did feel very individual. I kind of felt like on my own. I didn't have that like community base, and like we were working together in classes, and like I would have like people's phone numbers, but like I didn't text them. And like sometimes they would text me, I'm just like, I don't know who you are, because I didn't save their names with their numbers. And like and then they would tell me, and I'm like, okay, and then I would, but I was just like, who is this Virginia number? What is that? But like once I found PER, and I kind of like started getting into research, like that's still collaborative, but it's still a lot more individual, especially with presentations, that then music, then art. And so I took like my research, I kind of like meshed that with my life in the physics department at Texas State and my research life, and kind of like found that joy and that magic in doing education research, where like my goal as an education researcher is to just like make people enjoy doing physics, and like make the learning of physics exciting, and make the teaching of physics exciting, because then it brings joy and magic to the field itself. And when we have that, we can like work together to make it better. And so like trying to like take all my orchestra experience and be like, I liked this, I don't have it here, but I want it here. It's all very selfish. Like I want it here. Like I want that same community and that same collaboration, that like same like general collectivism, that if you do good, then I do good, and if I do badly and you do great, like that's awesome. I don't care that I did bad, because you did great. Like we worked together on this. Like this is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's selfish to want that in your experience. I mean, I definitely had to sit down and be like, you know, now I'm out of that academic space, I'm like, I want all of this, the benefits and all of the feel goods that I would get in theater and physics.
Yeah.
And like, why can't that happen? And so if I couldn't find it, I just had to like make it of my own. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because at this moment, it's like, because we're like diamonds in the rough, and in like this physics realm, as they would like to say. Like, I think it's okay to be, well, I guess it's like, it's okay to be selfish, even though it's like, it's a good selfish. It's not like a selfish of like, I'm gonna do this because I want to do this and nobody's gonna stop me. Like, it's a selfish of like, this is what I need in order to survive. If you want me here, this is exactly the things that I'm gonna give you, in terms of like, I need this, that, and the third, and the story. But yeah, I was just making a point, which I loved from what you were saying. So, but yeah, but that's really cool to know, and it's interesting to hear in terms of like, of the standards in which you require to be seen in physics, because I feel like across the board it's the same for a lot of us, in terms of what we're striving for within the field, and I think also culturally, like, in I've had a Twitter, so this is a side thing. I've had a Twitter for so long, but like, I kind of just now use Twitter strictly for like physics, and like, I didn't realize like how big of a community, at least for people of color, it is. And just like being able to be like, oh, you do this or you do that, and that's like, it's been really great to see that, and like be kind of dive in and investigate and see the things that I need to know in order to strive. And, you know, as a, you know, like you said, like, as an educator, you want to make physics more accessible or better for the experience of others better. And like, just, and I don't know if this will get me more, not necessarily, I'm not looking for recognition, but I'm thinking of, in terms of like, representation. And I think when you know, you are teaching a subject that doesn't represent what you look like, your values, or even like your cultural aspects, it can be really hard to connect with it. And I think finding our own way to understand the subject, and make our presence for others to be like, oh, I can be in this area. Ooh. I keep hitting my computer, but like, I can be in the subject and be that Black physicist, or you know, Latinx physicist, and you know, whatever you claim to be, for the next generation, and to them, you know, I think that's important, because that's really what inspired me myself to be within the field. Not that I knew any Black physicists when I liked physicists, but I had a woman who was my teacher, and you know, that alone, you know, it says something about who can teach, or who can show you where you can go with the thing. And then it's only gotten better as I've gotten up in the academic spaces. Like, I've met you, and I've met Simone, and I've met Brian, and so many other great people, Geraldine, the list goes on.
My God, it's so great.
On. And I'm realizing now, like, those are the physicists who I know, and who are pursuing these degrees, and who I can make connections with, and also give my students, hopefully one day, the connections too, to be like, look, I know this person, that person, what we got to do, like,
where do you want to go?
What department we reckon up? You know, and so and I guess I'm all like trying to figure out, like, how does this come back to my own understanding of what I'm doing in terms of painting, in terms of art. And I think that I'm using, oh, the ice cream truck is outside. Again, I live in, I mean, really, is that the ghetto? No. But the ice cream truck is coming around your block? No. Anyways, I got distracted really quickly.
It's just those dudes without their mufflers. I'm just like, okay, a muffler, nobody cares. You're too loud.
But like, you know, I'm hoping that, I don't know if what I'm doing is gonna is explaining physics, but I think it is making that what I'm trying to do is make the connection visually, in terms of like, you can do what you want with the concepts, and place yourselves in that frame of mind, in that space, to make it feel more accepting and more appealing to you. Because then people are intrigued and they're like, well, how did you figure that out? Or it's like, you know, I just spent a really long time thinking about conservation of energy and what does that mean, and you know, maybe that's me trying to be all philosophical, but it was just like this thing that I was like, I'm in a dark space with this. When at the time when I was doing my first one, I was in a dark space in terms of like just being somewhere where it's just not feasible to my own mental health. And so I was like, okay, I still love the subject. I know I still want to be within the subject, but how do I make it so that it's a positive? One, it was like a positive outlet for me. Two, it was like, I want something pretty to hang on my wall.
Yeah.
And three, it was like, you know, well, how will this make me learn or see physics in a different light than what I've been taught and what I've been like stuffed down or whatever, you know. And it was something that I could actually do individualistically that made me feel okay to do physics by myself. I guess this is a segue into the next question of like the conversation that we're having now in terms of STEM and STEAM and combining the intersection of physics and art. Do you think it's important then to have more conversations around it, around the intersection of science and art, or physics and art? And like, what are your thoughts on that? And
yeah, I think I wish that we talked about STEAM more. Like, I know it's like they're in like their STEAM spaces, like the customer, or the cultivating ensembles in STEM education research. Oh God, I can't believe I remember that. I think they just changing it to cultivating ensembles, which is cool. Like they're like STEAM spaces, like where people are thinking about this. But I wish it was like a broader conversation, and that we didn't like prioritize one over the other. And like I'm saying that like because like the grand scheme of things, there's let's see how I'm trying to say this. There's like the hierarchy of like what matters in school, you know, and especially in like schools that are like have a lower socioeconomic status, which is like the schools that I was brought up in, the schools that my friends are working in, schools that my mom is working in. So I think now she switched. I don't know if they're still Title One. Just wild. Like, I remember this first time I went to like a non-Title One school. So Title One is just like they have like a certain percentage of students who are on free and reduced lunch. And so it's usually seen in like communities of color. There's a lot of like things like extra funding, and like students get like free or reduced lunch. God, I love free and reduced lunch. We didn't have free and reduced lunch for like a year or two. My mom made like $50 over the limit. It was buck wild. So I just didn't eat lunch for like a year. Oh, it was wild. Yeah. Because the lunch was $2. And I was just like, I don't got $2. I got maybe $1. I don't know where the dollar came from. Oh, it was crazy. I remember the first time I saw kids who like were not in that area, and that was like at debate and like at orchestra stuff. And I was just like, y'all got pizza delivered to the competition? I brought a sandwich. I brought some chips. That's all I have. I got a water bottle, and it's just a plastic bottle. Oh, it was crazy. But like in those and like my mom's seen it a lot inside of her community or inside of her school that she was working at for a couple of years. And it's just like the things that matter aren't like the things that we put emphasis on come from the broader culture. So like sports, like if you play sports, you'll get out of whatever situation you're in. If you do this, you'll get out of whatever situation you're in, like, and you'll have money and you'll have clout and you'll have like a name and you'll have stuff out there. And like, it's so, and like that's like important. Like, sports are important, and like you should be able to play outside, but also like those little boys getting hurt playing football. I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna hit him so hard. Oh, it breaks my heart. I'm from Texas. We had a lot of football, watch a lot of football. I barely understand it, but like I've been going to football games for like the past 12 years, weekly. They just hit those boys so hard. My sisters are dancers, so like they're performing at the games. So we would go for them, not for the boys, but like, ugh. But like that's what matters. You know, like there are students that my sisters like graduated with in high school who would like be like first line or first draft, first pick or whatever on like college teams, but the boys couldn't read, you know, because they had so much emphasis on just like sports, like their sports. And then you get into like STEM, you know, like if you aren't doing sports, you got to do STEM, you got to do this, because it's like that's what we're going to invest our money in, that's what we're going to be working towards the future. But like they also don't like give you like background of like what that means, you know. And at the same time, like you keep going down like people like make jokes with like English majors. I'm just like, they're doing their thing, leave them alone. Social scientists, like they're doing their thing. And like at some point, and then you get to the arts. Like I started with a music degree. My entire family constantly, they're just like, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life, you're wasting your brain. Like, why are you doing this? And I was like, for one, it's the only school that I got into. I applied to 16 schools. Wild. And I forgot what I applied to as a major, but just like I applied to so many. My grades were like average, and I applied to schools where grades were not average. But they're just like, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy. This is a useless degree. There's no point in you doing this. Like, what are you going to do with the BM? So it's a bachelor's of music. And the moment that I switched, because I didn't want to tell them that I was switching because I knew this would happen. They're just like, finally, you're using your brain. You finally have some sense. You're doing good in the world. Like, this is what matters. And they had such a clear idea of like STEM is what matters. But at the same time, I was like, I'm still taking orchestra classes and still like working in, like with these people, still doing art and like using like the pedagogy that I've learned in music to help me do physics. Like I learned so much. It's like I could apply so much of just like careful practice. Like a lot of repetition is what we do. We do a lot of repetition, we do a lot of metacognition where like you try to play this. Okay, that doesn't work. What did I do? This is what I did. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try this. And like all that problem solving like has made me a better scientist. And so, and like I don't want to like be like music is important because it helps you do science, but also it's just so it's life-giving. Like I'm gonna get real hippy dippy here. I'm in a real hippy dippy mood. But just like art in general just gives so much life to the culture and to our communities, where like you had cave paintings on the wall, you had like my family's from Guam, you had like their art and their stories and like the lari stones they had like decorating the island and like how much that meant. And it's just like we shouldn't have to do art because it helps STEM. It should just like be its own thing, and it should be just as equally valued because of just like the life and the joy that it brings to the world. Like it shouldn't have to like have a contingency on it. And it's like I feel like those are the conversations that like we need to start having. It's just like, why do we value art and how do we value art just as it is? And if someone wants to pursue that, don't be like, you're not going to make any money off of that, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do this, because that's not why we do what we do. Like we do it because it brings joy and because it gives life to the world and it gives it a little bit of color. Yeah, real hippy dippy. I can go more hippy dippy.
I love the hippy dippy. Yeah, I like it. It makes me happy to know that, you know, and I'm slowly getting there in terms of like being like, okay, yeah, like these things can collectively exist together. They've always existed together from ancient times. And Saba was like, that's probably part of white supremacy and the structure of white supremacy.
Oh my god.
So shout out to Saba because she be knowing.
She does.
But
I can't wait to get to her level.
This is I'm so happy that, you know, I was able to get all my friends and creatives and physicists and smart people to come on and talk with me, and you are just a gem. Popped out of nowhere, and I was like, yes! I popped out of nowhere, and I was like, hello! And then,
I know, I was so excited. I remember seeing your first APT talk, and like that, like not your first, but like my first APT, you were there, and you like got up and you're like, hey, everyone, shake everything out.
really,
Let's go. I was like, amazing! I was so happy. I was like, this is where I need to be.
Yeah, I was nervous. Was I nervous? I think I was pretty nervous. Yeah. So I was like, let me just like get people, because you're also in a room with people, you know. I mean, I was with my advisor for my REU and whatever, but like it was nice to be in that space and be able to just be myself.
Like shake the sillies out. Yeah,
be in the space and make it my own. So yeah, I'm so glad and happy that, you know, we got to do this and sit down and talk and chop it up.
Yes, I'm so glad you're doing this. This is like, everything has been so great. It's been so wonderful to experience.
Thank you. You're amazing. Wonderful.
You're amazing. I love it.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording now.
All right.